To kick it off, I want to introduce myself. I am Morgan Nelson, the Director of Affinity Engagement in the Alumni Relations Office at Lehigh. I oversee all of our professional alliance and affinity groups, and I'm excited today that we have one of our very own Lehigh professors, Assistant Professor of Chinese, Dr. Thomas Chen. A quick introduction about Thomas, and then I'll turn it, Dr. Chen, I'll turn it over to him. Ph.D. in Comparative Literature from UCLA. And he focuses on his research, which is focused on Chinese literature and cinema, and including literature, cinema, translation studies. And more recently, what we'll talk about today is his book, Made in Censorship, the Tiananmen Movement in Chinese Literature and Film, which is available from Columbia University Press. Also wanted to mention some of the courses that Dr. Chen does teach at Lehigh, which include Chinese Literature in the World, Chinese Creative Writing, Introduction to Film, Letters from China, and Chinese Film in the World are just a few of the courses taught at Lehigh by Dr. Chen. So at this time, I am going to turn it over to Dr. Chen.
Thank you so much, Morgan, for the introduction, and thank you for having me. It's definitely a pleasure to be here on a Tuesday afternoon. Election day, right, of all days. I urge everybody to take time, for those of you who are in PA to go out and vote if you haven't done so already. Morgan and myself will do so after this session is over. I might have a quick lunch afterwards and then go to the local polling place. So today I just want to introduce my book to all of you briefly. Here it is, I have it. I guess the blur function is taking out the cover, but it's Made in Censorship, the Tiananmen Movement in Chinese Literature and Film. And I figured the best way to utilize my time today is to read a little snippet from the first chapter of the book. And I think it provides a nice framework to start our discussion for those of you who want to have some questions for me. So I'll be sharing my screen in a little bit to play you all a couple of video clips. On the morning of June 5, 1989, a lone man stood not far from Tiananmen Square in the middle of Chang'an Avenue, the thoroughfare that cuts through the heart of Beijing. Just the day before, government troops had retaken the square by force, clearing it of the protesters who had occupied it in the hundreds of thousands since mid-April, demanding social reforms and political freedom. Now, the solitary individual stood alone in front of a column of tanks. The lead tank tried to go around him, but he kept blocking its way, at one point even climbing onto the tank, before eventually being spirited away from the scene by bystanders. And here, let me play for you all that famous clip. I'll share screen, and I hope you all can see. Hopefully we won't be interrupted by any commercial.
Friends would walk up to me and just be like,
Okay, that's a good place to stop the video right there, and I'll continue with the talk. Captured by foreign reporters stationed in a nearby hotel, photographs and videos of the tank man have circulated worldwide ever since. That the man's identity and whereabouts remain a subject of speculation to this day has only inflated his iconicity. For many viewers, here was the dramatic conflict between human and machine, the individual and the state, bravery and brutality crystallized in a single image. Besides these binaries, the tank man has also come to symbolize Chinese censorship. In the 2006 PBS documentary, The Tank Man, a US reporter shows Chinese university students a reproduction of the image and asks whether they can identify it. In confirmation of the reporter's suspicions, the students claim ignorance. Journalist Louisa Lim repeats the experiment in her book, The People's Republic of Amnesia, Tiananmen Revisited, 2014. Lim again questions students on Beijing University campuses on the tank man photo. Only 15 out of 100 recognize it. The result of her test and the title of her book reinforce each other. At stake is the amnesia forced upon future generations of the Chinese. The interviewees, the same ages as those of the 1989 student protesters, are ignorant of their predecessors, preemptively cleansed of memories of them in their entirety. The tank man then simultaneously signifies its wide currency outside China and its blackout within. That was not always the case, however. The footage broadcast around the world was actually played on Chinese television too. Instead of being used as a shorthand for the clash between repression and resistance, this footage was presented to the domestic audience quite differently. This is the audio that accompanies the video. Quote, anyone with common sense can see that if our tanks were determined to move on, this lone scoundrel could never have stopped them. This scene, recorded on videotape, flies in the face of Western propaganda. It proves that our soldiers exercise the highest degree of restraint, end quote. I'll play for you all the video I'm referring to. And this is taken from the documentary, The Gate of Heavenly Peace.
少有常识的人都会看出，如果我们的铁骑继续前进，这个螳臂挡车的歹徒难道能够阻挡得了吗？摄像机拍下的这个画面，同西方某些国家的宣传恰恰相反，正好说明了我们的军队保持了最大限度的克制。
In the day.
This voiceover narration appears in the TV program Flutter, Flag of the Republic, a record of the quelling of the Beijing counter-revolutionary riot produced by the People's Liberation Army in July 1989. Outside China, through Western propaganda, the tank man may perpetuate the liberal political worldview. Inside China, however, the iconic image is just as amenable to a model of paternalistic governance. The stern male voice reinterprets, even though the meaning is self-evident to, quote, anyone with common sense, the confrontation between the state and the tank man as the forbearance of the father on one side and a renegade's brazenness on the other. All challengers of state authority must be lone wolves because the broad masses of the people stand with the Chinese Communist Party and its army. More than a reframing of that encounter, the above excerpt indicates that total elision was not the only way the party state handled the 1989 protests. In addition to precluding alternative voices from domestic newspapers, airwaves, and screens, in the immediate aftermath of June 4th, the state launched a coordinated campaign in text, image, and sound to delineate and then disseminate its own narrative. The censorship of June 4th has always been a total project of both prescription and proscription, prohibition and exhibition, silencing and speech. Government propaganda, of which Flutter, flag of the Republic, is but one example, should not be viewed as the opposite of censorship. Rather, it is a crucial dimension of censorship itself, a dimension almost always overlooked. This is a passage that I feel captures the gist, the main gist of my entire book, looking at censorship through different eyes, looking at how it produces instead of just deletes, what it produces, how it shapes and manipulates readers and audiences from through what is produced. I'll conclude my talk here, and I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Chen. At this time, if anyone, any attendees that are on here, if you would like to put the questions, any Q&A questions in the chat, I would be happy to relay those questions then. So to get it started though, I did want to ask the inspiration for writing your book. How did that begin, and how did you get into this topic of research?
Thanks very much for this question, Morgan. Censorship has always been interesting to me, and it's so fascinating because there's so many ways to study it and examining it. Another interesting way of looking at censorship, and it's something that I look forward to carrying out in future projects, is comparing different versions of a particular work of art, both the uncensored and the censored. And I think through, if you will, this study of different editions, right, we can really get to the heart of what it is that's controversial, what it is that regimes deem sensitive, what is taken out of the cleansed, the censored version, what is in the original that could not be countenanced. This is a area of study that fascinates me, and I hope to continue with this line of work in some future projects.
Great, thank you. Also, again, just encouraging any of those who might have questions to send them in the Q&A. So question we have, so obviously censorship occurs daily. How does it affect the news reported?
Thank you for this question. This is Janet, right? Thank you.
Janet, correct.
My way of looking at censorship can be applied to different circumstances, not just contemporary China, right? So if we think of censorship as a force that not just deletes, but rather you could say even a reviewing, filtering mechanism, then things can be looked at in a different light. So not only things that are banned and removed and taken out, not just those things are quote unquote censored, but everything that appears in public, everything that appears in media, for instance, on TV, in the news, that has already gone through a certain kind of censorship. So censorship is almost like a gate that blocks access to certain for certain materials on the way to the public, and allows certain things to go through, right? But even those things that are allowed to go through, even things that are published that appear on radio or on TV or in the movies, those too have been censored. Those too have been reviewed and allowed to go through. So censorship in this reconceptualization will be more of a screening mechanism that filters out undesirable content and letting go into the public desirable content.
Thank you. Another one, what aspects of this creative side of censorship do you consider to be distinctly Chinese?
And thank you for this question. And I think it follows up on the previous one, right? Now, what's distinctively Chinese is the outsized role that the government plays, the central government plays in China. Is there interference of various kinds in a context such as the US? Sure, but here in the US, it's very much dispersed. There are various non-governmental forces at play, right? In China, the bottom line, the gigantic elephant in the room is the central government. It very much sees itself as governing discourse, governing speech. What can be brought into the public and what should stay private? So China today, it's not the China of the Mao years, right? Where even private speech can be subject to punishment. That is, people who kept diaries, private conversations among colleagues, for instance, can be reported, can be investigated. And so even the private domain was not what was susceptible to government patrol and control. Today in China, as restrictive as speech still may be, the realm of control, the target, it's the public domain. It's not the private. So that will be the major distinction of the Chinese situation.
Thank you. Now, following up with that question from Thomas, another part of it, what aspects seem to you to be shared globally among regimes that oppressively control public information?
Oh, another great question. And I think my reconceptualization would help us to examine and analyze comparative context, right? So censorship as not just the taking down of websites, as the blocking of certain, social media channels or what have you, but even those that are allowed to appear, say news, right? News that does make it onto TV, that has been censored, that has been vetted, whether it's an official or some other monitoring agency has watched it and given his or her stamp of approval to what domestic audiences are allowed to watch or read.
Great. So, this is another question too, that sometimes I'm curious about, but do you think that people in China can tell when their news is being censored?
That's a very difficult question. And I think we can approach such a question through the lens of generations. The younger generation in China today, they're very media savvy, internet savvy. They spend, as here, right, so much time on their phones, online, and despite the pervasiveness of various forms of restriction, there are alternative voices that get promulgated simply because cyberspace is so vast. So in terms of generations, the older generations, I would say, they due to that perhaps they are less savvy in determining the truth of a particular event, whereas the younger generations are more open to different versions.
Great. Sorry, everyone, if I don't get to all the questions, we do have a lot coming in. So I am just going through. So you mentioned that the Tank Man clip was still played on Chinese media, though with a propaganda spin, yet many Chinese people knew what occurred at Tiananmen Square. Was this film clip eventually censored outside of all Chinese media, or is it still used in a pro-Chinese way? An example, there are soldiers showing utmost restraint.
Great question. Excellent follow-up question. Censorship has to be looked at historically. It's never just one blanket policy, right? Policies definitely evolve over time. So in this case, the government campaign after the June 4th massacre, it took place over, by my estimate, over a course of 2 years. So until 1991, Chinese people could still find such material in books, printed books, publications, on radio, on TV, the government view, the government narrative promulgated and publicized, right? But then in 1991, by my research, it all stopped. Somebody high up renounced this strategy, perhaps acknowledging defeat, right? That this narrative simply does not pass muster in the long run. So what followed afterwards, more or less from 1991 to the present, there are some subtle differences, but from 1991 to the present, over the last roughly 30 years, the way to deal with Tiananmen has been one of whiteout, blackout.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Chen. This is an interesting question. Were you actually in China during the incident, and did you view it differently once leaving China if you were there?
Thank you for this question too. This is unbelievably, I was in China. I was in Beijing, and I was a boy of not yet 6 years old. So I was born in Beijing, and I was there in 1989, in that spring/summer of 1989. But I have absolutely zero personal memories of the event. I don't know if it's a case of simply not remembering, or family members at the time, shielding me from this event. But yeah, for a boy of 5, not quite 6, I recall nothing of the event itself from those days. Only memories of playing with friends and things like that.
Great. Let's see here. Sorry, there are just so many questions at the moment. So a question from Michael says, do you think that the Chinese people think that their level of censorship is common? Or do you think that they are aware that there is less censorship in Western world?
Great question, Michael. They are aware that definitely the speech environment in China is different from elsewhere, especially compared to the West and the US. Even regular commentary, not of a decidedly political nature, is often curtailed, right? Especially now where we're in the pandemic, right? And so, too much complaining about the government policy, whether locally or on a national level, will lead your comment online to be deleted, to be taken down, lead your account to be blocked. So there is a lot of everyday censorship that is visible and experienced by the average Chinese person. That's what makes this fascinating, right? Censorship is not just practiced upon political dissidents by any means. It's a common everyday occurrence.
Mm-hmm. Are you able to talk about, it might put you on the spot real quick, so this isn't, we can move on, but can you talk about a specific example of censorship of literature or film in contrast to news topic that we've been discussing?
For the vast majority of my book, Made in Censorship, it deals with literature and film. So here we have artful speech, right? Literary language or artistic images. So we are on different terrain compared to news, journalistic discourse, and of course, in art, in literature, and cinema, you have more indirect modes of expression, and that is something that I explore in my book.
Great, awesome. And do you mind just telling a little bit more about your book, like where you can, I'm curious to know where you can find it. Is it just on like Amazon or?
It is, yeah, it's on Amazon. You can.
No.
Okay, I should turn off
That
the board,
lovely
but
blur of Zoom.
it's yes, it's on Amazon. You can get it from the Columbia University Press website. If I type in the chat, Morgan,
Yeah.
so let me tell everybody, you can use this code to get 20% off of the book through the Columbia University Press website.
Awesome.
So it's something that you can't get from Amazon. So yeah.
Michael, you were thinking the same thing. He commented and said the book cover is also being censored. Censored by the Zoom blur.
It's funny that Michael mentions this because I've shared my book over my Chinese social media accounts, and yes, the translation, right, gets censored. It doesn't come out as Tiananmen. It comes out as some nonsense word in automatic translation. Let me stop the blur so we can get. There we go. Okay, so in Chinese translation, censorship does not get translated. Maybe perhaps it's because it's in kind of handwriting anyway, and Tiananmen becomes some gibberish basically.
Oh, interesting. Great. Well, in respect of everyone's time, there are quite a few more questions I would love to get to, but just because we want to be respectful of everyone's time and day, I want to, of course, say thank you, Dr. Chen, for joining us and for all the great research that you do and the knowledge that you are providing to the students. And also thank you to all the attendees. I did get one last question. Is your book available in China or is it censored there?
It's definitely, it would need to be translated first, right? But I hope that one day it does get translated into Chinese, for publication, whether in Hong Kong, which is less and less likely these days, right? We're Taiwan, but that would be a great wish of mine.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining. And
thank you everyone for the
Dr. Chen.
questions. Thank you, Morgan.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Remember to vote.
Yes.
Bye-bye.